Hey guys, it's Delta Anims, and today I'm going to be listing the swords that I use in Blox Fruits based on how good it is in grinding, PvP, and how good it looks. So I'm going to start off with the cutlass because it's the first weapon that I start with. And also make sure that katana and the cutlass are technically the same thing. So you can see the abilities aren't that impressive. Okay, this is just the portal. I was going to create a combo with it. But let's be real, this sword's not that good. So, we know what place it's going. I mean, this is a starter sword. So over here is my tier list. So, this would go in the why use this tier. I mean, let's be honest. The combat does the same damage as this, and it actually is more faster. So, there's there's technically no use for these two. So, the next on this list is the dual katana. This is my second sword I bought in the game. And I'll be honest, this sword's actually pretty cool. But the thing is, well, it doesn't do that much damage. I mean, we got the whirlwind. I mean, it's, I guess, alright for combos. The M1 damage is, like, pretty good for a first C sword. And if you use Buddha with this, it could have been a lot better, but this sword by itself sucks. I'll be honest, this sword is pretty terrible. So, we all know what tier it's going. So over here, it's gonna go into the mid tier, actually. Actually the starter swords. This is actually a pretty good starter. It's much better than these two. The next sword is the triple katana. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite swords when I was in the first seat. Like, this is an uncommon sword, and look how good this looks. Like, looks this good. And the damage is actually pretty good. So this is also a pretty nice starter sword. So, in the tier, it's actually gonna go. So over here, it's going to the mid tier. It's not as good as the other swords here, so we're gonna move on to the next one, which is the iron mace. And I'll be honest, this sword is actually quite unique. Like, not really that unique, but when I first got it, I thought it was unique. Like, unlike the other swords that I previously showed, this actually does a slam down. And that is actually pretty sick. And the damage is, I guess, alright. But it's not as good as the triple katana. And I only bought this sword to put in my collection. So let's go to the tier list. So in the tier list, the iron mace is actually gonna go to the mid tier. Actually in the starter swords here. It's actually a pretty good starter tier sword. The next one is the warden sword. And this sword's actually pretty good for grinding if you don't have Buddha, because it's pretty long. And this would be able to hit enemies far away, which will be very useful. But here's the thing, no one really gonna use this because, well, it doesn't do that much damage, and this is just only like a starter sword. For PvP, this sword is terrible. Don't use this, unless if you're, of course, skilled. So, in the tier list, this sword will be going. The sword will be going into the starter sword. The next sword I will take is the trident, which is basically the Wish.com version of Spiky Trident, which apparently I don't own it. So, as you can see, this sword's actually pretty good for combos, which could be good for PvP, and its grinding potential's alright. It's not that good, but I guess it works because of the water pulse ability. But the thing is, this ability is quite slow, so that's what makes it not that great. So on the tier list, this sword is gonna be going into the good tier actually. I mean, this sword's actually pretty nice. Like, it has very good combo potential, and it has a pretty fun grinding experience. And I also enjoy a lot because of this ability. So technically with this ability, you can literally like, you can use this as a mobility, like, just look. Wait, I missed it. Oh, never mind. You see that? It's actually really cool. That's why I like this ability a lot. I mean, I just use it for fun, so we all know the place. So let's go to the next sword. The next sword we have is the Soul Cane. And I'll be honest, this is actually one of my favorite swords. Like, just look at this. So there's like stun abilities, and this makes a really good PvP sword. And the damage is pretty decent, which makes it alright for grinding actually. But the only reason why you would use this sword is just for PvP. So you can make a quick combo with this. Not technically combo. I mean, this isn't the sword that I would usually use. So yeah. So let's go to the tier on this sword. So the tier of this sword, it will go into the good tier. I mean, this sword's actually pretty nice. Let's be honest. It's good for PvP, it's decent for grinding, so of course it would be in the good sword tier. The next sword we have is the long sword, which it's kind of forgotten. Like, I never seen someone use it. Like, it's just there to rot in your inventory. I mean, the animation looks pretty nice, but let's be honest. No one's really gonna use this sword. I mean, it's alright, but let's be real, no one would really want the sword again. And let's talk about its PvP potential. I mean, the first ability, Annihilate, is very similar to, you know, what's it called? Yama. Which is quite interesting. So, I still had not fully mastered the sword, so I wouldn't So the sword ranking would be a bit lower because I did not fully master the sword. So for the long sword, I would be just mid. I mean, let's be honest, why would you use the sword? Like, it's just gonna be in your sword collection. Now the next sword is a Jite, or I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'll just call it Jite. So basically this sword, well, I don't use it at all. I mean, I only just grinded some mastery on this, and I'll be honest. This sword, I mean, its M1's alright. What makes it bad is just its dash. I've seen like videos of PvP with this, and I'll be honest, it looks pretty good, but it's forgotten, and let's be honest, no one's really using the sword these days. You'd be sticking to like other swords, so technically this sword is going in the mid tier. I mean, that's just in my opinion because I do not have any moves on this unlocked yet, so let's move on. Okay, the next sword is the dual-headed blade, and does anyone use this? I never seen a player use this, and I only grinded its mastery just for fun. So let's see the moves. So we got Assassinate. That looked cool. And then now we got the Raging Wind. I'll be honest, its PvP potential is, I guess, alright. But it's not technically the best. So let's get back to the tier list and rank the sword. So in this tier list, I'm going to be ranking the sword into, why even use this sword? Like, it's not really worth its price, and you only just get it just to use instead of getting Bacento, because it's very hard getting Bacento. So let's move on. So the next sword that I'm going to be listing is the Bacento, or Bicento. So this sword's actually pretty good. Like, as you can see, this sword is actually the one that I used before I got a Dark Blade. I got gifted by the Dark Blade. And I'll be honest, this is actually really good. I mean, it's a really good sword. It could actually be a pretty good PvP sword if you use it properly. Like, it does really high damage for a first C sword. So I'm honestly impressed. So let's go to the ranking. So in the ranking, this is gonna actually be top of good, actually. But one thing that makes the sword not that common in first C is because of how expensive it is in the first C. Like, you have to pay 1 million belly to get the sword. And let's be honest, the first C doesn't give you that much money. Let's move on. The next sword I got is the Shark Saw. And this sword's actually way too cool for just being a first C sword. Like, this is actually one of my favorite swords, but let's be real. It's just gonna be in your inventory because there are way better swords than this. So not really anyone's getting this. And plus, the boss itself in the level that I got this is pretty hard. So the level I got this sword was like level 50. I got this sword pretty early, so I kept using it until I got what was it called? Triple Katana. So let's go to the tier list and rank this sword. So in terms of PvP, I don't think anyone would really use the sword. Like, its moveset's really slow and its hitbox is very small. So it's not really recommended for PvP. And mostly this sword should be like in the starter tier, actually. Like, it's mostly used for first C beginners to like get to second C. I mean, let's be real, you're just gonna change your sword very quickly once you get another one. The next sword I'm going to be rating is the pole, which I don't have that much mastery. So it wouldn't be that good, and the M1's very slow. And the only reason why you use pole is just to get pole V2, nothing else. So let's go to the tier list. So I'll be honest, we're just gonna put the pole into why even use this. Like, which of you would choose pole V2 pole V1 over pole V2? I don't think any one of you would. Let's go to the next sword. For the next sword is the saber, and this sword is amazing. This sword is way too good. Like, look at the damage. Oh my god. Like, look at it. That's crazy. Just look at the damage. So for this is actually the first overpowered sword. Like, this is both great for grinding and PvP because of its ridiculous damage. Like, look at it. And if you pair it up with like a stun fruit, this sword's beyond good. So back to the tier list. So at the tier list, this sword is obviously going to the overpowered tier list. Like, this sword is way too good. The next sword is the pipe, and this is honestly one of the early swords that I used to use. And this is amazing for just a first C weapon. Just look at it. And this is also pretty good for PvP if you're skilled. But let's be real, you just only use this for grinding. And that's what I usually do. Or you also like to cosplay as Sabo. Okay, let's go to the tier list and see how good it is. So here on the tier list, this sword's actually pretty good. I'll be honest, the sword's actually pretty good. The next sword is, well, I'm gonna be picking out Darkblade because why not? And this is the sword I used on the end of my first C journey and early to my second C journey. I used this sword up to like level 800 something because that was the time I got Rengoku, which I'll talk about that sword later. I'll be honest, this is actually pretty good for PvP. Like, you cannot tell me you can dodge this. Like, look at how fast this goes. And this is also a pretty good stun. So, personally, this sword would be an easy S tier. Done. This sword's an S tier. What? Like, that sword's an easy S tier. Okay, let's move on to our next sword. The next sword I got is the Hollow Side, and whoa, this sword looks badass. Like, look how cool this looks. And the abilities, they also look pretty good. Like, look at it. I mean, you wouldn't see the full because, well, my internet's pretty terrible today. But let's be real, this sword is amazing. But here's the thing, I was kinda lazy to grind to 300 mastery. So, this sword would be an S tier, but for now, I'll just leave it as, well, a good sword because I hadn't unlocked the soul execution move yet. So here in the tier list is actually going to be in the top of the good tier because this sword's actually really good. The next sword I got is the Coco, and this sword actually looks really cool. Like look at the X move. I still did not get the I still did not get the X move because, well, let me say it again, I'm still lazy to grind. So, based on PvP, this is actually pretty good. Like, you can make combos up with this. So, it would be like mostly in a skilled PvP. And for grinding, this sword's also pretty decent. But what makes this sword not that... But here's also another downfall of the sword, and it's because of its early dash. Like, it gets in the third click, which is actually kinda annoying. But the dashes aren't that long, which is a good thing. So, let's go to the tier list and rank this sword. So, I'm going to be, unfortunately, ranking this sword in mid-tier. I mean, they did this sword kinda dirty. Like, look at my boy Transfolgar Law, like, he looks amazing with this sword. But in the game, it's not that great. I mean, I just only got the first move, so it wouldn't be that great. So, I might make another ranking video of this once I fully master all the swords here. The next sword I have is the Buddy Sword. And this sword's actually pretty decent. Like, this sword right here can do decent damage. Let me just show you on this Force Pirate. And it wouldn't do as much damage as... That's because I didn't put that much on the sword. Because I'm like using a hybrid stat. Another good thing about this sword is the heat slash. Like, look at how good this is. It even has the burn. But one unfortunate thing about this sword is the heat slash is only a single targeted one. So it's not really that recommended for grinding, unless if you're just gonna spam the Buddha. So, to be honest, I'm going to rank this sword in good tier. Once I get the lightning wave, then I could have given like an overpowered tier because this sword's really good for PvP. The next sword that I'm going to be ranking is the Rengoku, also known as the donut. Yeah. So this sword is actually my favorite. Like, this is really good for PvP, and it's also paired up well with Ghost, as you can see. Like, you can actually do really good combos with this. I'm not that good at PvP. I'm still like practicing PvP. And this sword combined with the Ghost Fruit with hybrid stats, it's really good. Like, words cannot express how much I love this sword. So in the ranking tier, this sword is obviously going to the overpowered tier. Let's be real, this sword is really good for PvP. The next sword I'm going to be ranking is the Midnight Blade. And this sword is the blade that I used at like somewhere level 750. I mean, I went to the cursed ship somehow. With like, there's a glitch where you can actually go to the cursed ship. And I've been using this sword a lot. A bit more than the Dark Blade. So I can show you the combos with this. And this sword is insanely good for combos. Just look at how good this is. Like, you can't deny it. It just looks really good. And this is actually pretty good for PvP. Like, this sword has a lot of combo potential. And it's also pretty decent in grinding, especially its M1, because it's very fast and it does pretty high damage. So I'm going to be ranking this sword. As overpowered tier. This sword's actually really good. The next sword that I'm going to be introducing is the Gravity Cane. And this sword is really good for PvP. Like, really good. Just look at the combos I can make with this. And this makes it pretty good for ghost users. First there's a stun, then there's a grasp. And that just makes it so much better. So based on the PvP, this sword's really good. It's outstanding. But for grinding, this sword isn't really a good choice. Like, I would be honest, this sword is pretty, well, weak when it comes to grinding. It does pretty bad damage. But this sword is just only used as like a combo sword. So it's not really much with this. Like, I mean, I guess you can use this to grind if you don't have any good swords. Or you don't have Saber V2. So basically in the ranking, this is actually going to be going in the good tier. It's actually going to be in the good tier. So we're going to move on to the next sword. The next sword that I'll show you is the Yama. And my god, this sword actually looks really cool. Like, look at the aura and the way you hold it. Like, it just makes it look like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, you get it, right? And this sword's actually really good for PvP and grinding. The sword does pretty good damage, and you can do pretty good PvP with it. But what makes this not the best sword is, it's actually pretty hard getting it, because you have to kill 30 elite pirates. And that actually is really annoying, and it's really time consuming just to get the sword. And I'll be honest, it's worth getting this. Like, it looks really cool and the abilities are amazing. So I would highly recommend this for PvP, even though don't take too much advices from a PvP noob, okay? So, I'd be honest, this sword's actually pretty nice. So, let's go to the tier list and rank it. So, in the tier list, this is actually gonna go in the good tier. I did not unlock the final move yet again, so it's just gonna be in the good tier. And now, I got the final sword of this video, and it's the Dragon Trident. And this is the sword that I actually used to grind all the way up to 3rd C. I mean, I'm still not max level, but this sword is insanely OP. Just look at the abilities. And this also has one of the highest AoEs. Just look at this. Like, it's amazing. And the damage of it's really high, which actually makes it a really good sword for PvP because of its high damage. Could even make the no skill build, which, let me get it real quick. So basically you just use any type of Buddha, unawakened or awakened, and then you just Buddha spam while using the abilities. And the best part is the X actually stuns them, which will be extremely annoying if you're having to deal with a Buddha user that is spamming the Dragon Trident. Let's go back to the tier list. So, in this tier list, I think we get it. This sword is way too good. Way too good. Thanks for watching my video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you the next time. Bye!